You are watching The Bible Witness.
Blessed is the one who hears this prophecy, for the end time is near. My name is John the Apostle, and I'm boiled alive for claiming Jesus as King. But God protected me, so I remained unharmed. Frustrated, the Romans exiled me. The trip wasn't easy, yet within, I felt only peace. I accepted this exile calmly. Eventually, the storm ceased, and I arrived upon the barren shore of Patmos. Carrying only a parchment scroll, I stepped into my new home. I seated myself upon the cold stone, but I didn't await for what would come next. I am John, the one they called the beloved disciple. I once walked behind Jesus. I once leaned on his shoulder at the final meal. I was there when they raised him on the cross. I once saw the empty tomb. I saw him ascend into heaven, rising in light before our eyes. And now, in the quiet of my cave, a sudden light filled the room. I turned and he was there, robed in white, light surrounding him. Then he gave me the visions of the end of time. The light lifted me from the ground before I could understand what was happening. And the earth fell away beneath clouds and stars. I rose higher, beyond the morning light, until I floated above the world itself. Space stretched silent around me. Then I saw it, a great gate standing on a cloud of light and color. I was small before it, drifting closer, trembling. I was inside, drawn toward the far end. Angels, real angels, were welcoming me. I had entered the gate of heaven. I entered a place where the ground was clouds and the sky clear above. Angels surrounded me as I floated forward, unable to speak. I looked up and saw the Lord sat at the center, too bright to behold, cloaked in pure light. Around him were 24 elders, each seated, crowned, watching. I dropped to my knees. I saw 7 flames burned near the throne. Those were his spirits. Then I saw 4 living creatures. Each has wings and eyes all over the body. One like a lion, one like an eagle, one like a man, and one like a bull. The elders fell forward together. Then they removed their crowns and laid them on the ground before him. One of the elders told me to look at the Lord's hand. Then I saw in the right hand of the Lord a scroll, sealed with 7 seals. A mighty voice declared, "Who is worthy to open the scroll?" And no one in heaven or on earth could open it or look inside. I wept and wept, because no one was found worthy. Then one of the elders came to me, placed his hand on my shoulder and pointed forward. Then I saw a lamb, laying as though it had been slain. But suddenly the lamb came back to life. The lamb rose and came forward. He went to the one seated on the throne and took the scroll from his right hand. When he took the scroll, I saw it was him, my beloved master. The 4 living creatures fell down before him, and the 24 elders fell down before him. The voices of angels surrounded us. The Lamb was worthy. He had been slain, and by his blood he ransomed people for God. I looked again, and my eyes filled with tears, not from sorrow, but from the weight of glory. The Lamb opened the first seal, and I looked. Then I heard the voice of the first living creature. It said, "Come," and a white horse appeared. Its body formed from words of flame. Its rider's name is Pestilence. He came forth from the gate. His horse struck the earth, and dust rose beneath its hooves. I watched him ride out. On his head was a crown, in his hand was a golden bow, and I saw Pestilence go out upon the earth. He breathed, and men fell. I saw children stilled in their mother's arms. Waters turned toxic beneath him. I saw the fallen lying silent on the stone. Eyes stared without breath. No life remained. He passed through house and temple, field and marketplace. The old were not spared. Death came quickly. I saw them lying in heaps. No one left to carry them. The strong fell beside their goods, never to rise again. Crowds once gathered here, now silence held the seats. The rats ran in waves, spreading the pestilence. I saw men try to name the sickness, but their words failed them. I saw fire consume the dead. The living could not bury them all. Nothing withstood him, beast or man. The young sat alone, not knowing they had survived. The dead lay hidden, their names already lost. Even the smallest movement was stilled. I saw hands fall cold. What was precious no longer mattered. The fog followed him wherever he went, and I understood. This was only the beginning. When the Lamb opened the second seal, then another horse came out, a fiery one. Its rider's name is War. I saw him fall like fire through the sky. Power was given to him to take peace from the earth, so that men would slay one another. And when his horse struck the ground, it cracked beneath him. And I saw that peace was taken from the earth. Cities burned, walls crumbled, altars split open and idols fell. I saw swords lifted in temples and blood spilled in marketplaces. Brother turned against brother. No place was spared. The strong enslaved the weak. The conquerors tore down gods they did not know. War gave the command, and men obeyed. Violence spread without end. The blade knew no side. He pushes the war more far. The world drowned in its own blood. Fire followed them, and ash covered their path. The sacred was mocked and thrown down. I saw men forced to carry stones while others watched with spears. Kings were bound and sacrificed. The rider moved through the smoke, his foot on the fallen. Fields of steel were left behind, and so war departed, leaving silence in his shadow. When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." Then a black horse appeared, its rider named Famine. I saw clouds gather dark above the earth. He stood on cracked ground, fields parched and empty. Famine's touch turned ripe fruit to rot. Fields withered as he passed. The harvest crumbled where it stood, gray and lifeless. Hunger stripped hope from the eyes of men. The ground was cracked and barren. They searched for crumbs that never came. The swarm devoured what little remained. Children chewed ash for nourishment. Even the beasts had starved, their bones whitening under sun. The final handful fell like gold, too little. Famine's scale held no wheat, only weightless dust. Crops collapsed of their own sorrow. Beggars queued for nothing. People sold human flesh openly on the streets. Families traded their children to eat one another's babies. Some parents buried their infants alive because they could no longer feed them. Others shaped soil into food, fooling hunger one more day. And yet kings gorged themselves in golden halls. The nobles wasted food while others starved. Even false gods were fed. Famine's reach spread like wildfire. Gray swallowing green, famine rode on beneath a dying sky, and the earth lay still behind him. When he opened the fourth seal, I saw the scroll again. 3 seals remained. The voice of the fourth creature called out, "Come." I looked. The scroll horse cried out. A rider came forth. She sat upon a pale horse, and in her hand was a golden scythe. A beam of light fell from above. She stood in a place where nothing lived. I saw shadows rising from under the earth. One was clothed in the armor of old. He walked toward the light. Many more followed. They carried the tools of their slavery. They entered their former king's court. He awoke in terror. They overtook him and his cries faded. She turned toward me. Her eyes still glowed. I saw another soul touch the tomb of its own flesh. They moved through ruins that once honored false gods. Some passed the altars where blood was spilled. They climbed the temple stairs without sound. A soul rose from a lifeless body in the dust. Others followed, flesh behind, spirit ahead. A small child wandered between broken walls. On the fields of war, I saw spirits lift like smoke. They moved like mist through the mountains. A glow led them onward across dead lands. The rider stood at their head. They gathered behind her. Together they passed into the white without end. I looked, and behold, 4 riders rode as one. Power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth. Then the Lamb opened the 5th seal. I saw the Lord on his throne giving a command. The souls of those who had been killed for their faith appeared. I remembered how they were put to death. They're all my brothers and sisters. Andrew was crucified. Bartholomew was tortured and killed. Philip was burned alive. Thomas was beheaded. I, John, was sentenced to death, but I lived. Others were thrown to wild beasts. I don't know the fate of Mary. The souls cried out for justice. Some lifted their hands and prayed. All looked to heaven, waiting. But they were told to wait a little longer. Then white robes were given to each of them. They received them as it was appointed. They stood beneath the altar, clothed and waiting. The Lord sat still upon his throne. He gave no answer. One of them cried out, asking how long until justice would come. The Lord did not reply. The time was not yet. When the Lamb opened the 6th seal, I saw what followed. There was a great earthquake. The whole earth trembled. The sun became black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The full moon turned blood red. The stars fell to the earth, as a fig tree sheds its unripe figs when shaken by a strong wind. They dropped quickly, one after another. The sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up. Every mountain moved from its place. The islands, too, were shifted and swallowed by the sea. Then the kings of the earth hid themselves. So did the nobles and high officials. The commanders crouched down in fear. The rich tried to cover themselves. The powerful and the priests did the same. Even the slaves and the free trembled and hid. The young searched for places to escape. All cried out to the mountains and the rocks. They said, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb." Then I saw the Lord giving command again. And I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood a multitude. They lifted their eyes. They were many, standing in order, stretching far. One stood still, eyes closed, and a seal appeared on his forehead. The mark shone, and I knew it was the seal of the living God. Others also bore the mark, and they looked upward. And the number of the sealed was 144,000, from all the tribes of the children of Israel. After this, I looked, and there was a great multitude, from every nation and language. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands. I saw a man spraised, his eyes lifted to the throne. They said, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." All fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God. The angels stood around the throne, and around the elders and the 4 living creatures. Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen. One of the elders stepped back, bowed his head, hand over his heart. The living creature, full of eyes, lowered itself to the ground. All the angels and the people bowed before the throne. Some of the multitude spoke together, their eyes looking upward. Then one of the elders asked me who they are. I said to him, "Only God knows." These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. The one who sits on the throne spread his hand forward in blessing. The Lamb walked into the temple, his shadow trailing behind. He stood in the center of golden fields, surrounded by perfect white light. He bent down to the water and touched it gently. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Then I saw 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. 7 angels stood in silence, lined up side by side, waiting. One by one, each angel was handed a trumpet. One angel stepped forward toward the altar. They picked up the censer. Smoke began to rise as they moved. The incense burned thick. Smoke curled upward. The writeress who were murdered were crying, shouting, calling for justice. On the throne, God is watching. The angel added burning coals into the censer. Then they poured the fire down onto the world. The 7 angels raised their trumpets, and they blew. I was exiled on Patmos when he came to me again. My God, show me the visions, and everything changed. My eyes were opened. I saw the scroll sealed 7 times, burning with judgment. Then came the 4 riders: conquest, war, famine, and death. I saw the great multitude of people who were spared. Light clashed with darkness. But what comes next were most terrifying: the 7 trumpets of angels. It began with the first trumpet. When the angel blew, silence shattered, and judgment fell. I saw ice rain down and cities were struck. Crowds fell in ruined marketplaces, crushed by stone and chaos. Then came the fire. It poured from the sky, igniting towns. People fled in terror, burning as they ran. Blood followed down from the red sky. Streets turned red as entire cities drowned in blood. They cried, they gasped, they fought to stay afloat. I watched, helpless, my breath caught. This was only the beginning. The land itself broke. A third burned. Ash covered fields. Creatures lay dead in the dust. Green pastures met scorched soil. 1/3 of the earth was lifeless. No one could stop it. The first trumpet had sounded. The second trumpet sounded. I saw a great burning mountain fall from the sky and strike the sea. The impact tore the ocean open. Walls of water rose. The sea turned red. The blood of the deep rose to the surface. Countless sea creatures died. 1/3 of the ships were destroyed, split, capsized, or set ablaze. 1/3 of the sea was crimson. The water, once full of life, had become death. The third trumpet sounded. A burning star fell and struck the rivers, which called wormwood. The waters turned bitter. First, every fishes died. When people drank without knowing, they collapsed with mouths stained and hands gripping their throats. By the time the sun rose high, many were dead. From above, I saw 1/3 of the rivers glowing green. What once gave life now brought death. The fourth trumpet sounded. 1/3 of the sun darkened, and light withdrew from the day. Its light faded, leaving the sky uneasy. 1/3 of the moon dimmed, and the night grew heavier. The heavens no longer gave full light. The stars on the sky lost a portion of their light, and the earth stood beneath the shadow. 1/3 of the sky lay under dimness. Then I looked, and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe! Woe! Woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the sound of the other trumpet blasts of the three angels. The fifth trumpet sounded. The Lord held the key and opened the abyss. Smoke rose from the pit. It spread like a storm, blotting out the sun. The light was gone. Darkness covered the land. Then they came, swarms of creatures, not of this world, face of a woman, crown on their head, their bodies of locusts and their stings of scorpions. They moved fast, tormenting all in their path. People cried out, seized by pain, but death would not come. The skies were filled with their wings. None could flee. All who lacked protection suffered. They tried to resist with fire, but were overwhelmed. Some collapsed, unable to escape the agony. I saw one try to end her pain, but even death was denied her. The sixth trumpet sounded. One fell from heaven. The command came from above. The four angels of the Euphrates River were waiting. They had been held until this hour. Then they rose. They prepared for what was given. Their beasts carried them into the world. Ground burst from their mouths. Fire followed and covered everything. False holy places burned. The air turned to ash and flame. There was blood and black dust. Their number filled the horizon. A third of mankind was gone. The earth lay scorched and still. Even after all this, they did not turn back. They bowed to idols of gold, silver, bronze, and wood. Idols cannot hear or walk or see. They prayed to false gods and waited for answers. Besides, they still killed. They still practiced sorcery, and they stole without shame. The seventh trumpet sounded. Through the storm, I saw a gaunt angel begin to rise. He was colossal. Mountains and sea were both under his feet. Then 7 bolts struck the earth, one after another, near and far. I looked up toward the signs above me. I began to write what had been shown, but a light came over me and stopped my hand. For God says, "Seal up what the 7 thunders said, and do not write them down." Then the angel knelt and opened his palm. In it was a scroll glowing softly. I stood before his hand and saw what was given. I reached out and took it with both hands. I lifted it to my lips as I was told. I swallowed the scroll. It was sweet on my tongue, but turned bitter as it entered my stomach. I saw the 2 witnesses come forth, one from the lampstand, the other from the tree. They stood before the Lord and were given power. I watched as they were sent out. They spoke to the people just as they were told. They lifted their hands and warned the people on the cities. They declared the same to the countrysides. No one was left without witness. Some tried to resist and attack them, but fire burst from their mouths, and the attackers was consumed. The skies above turned black. The waters turned to blood. Fire struck the earth where they passed. One pressed a scroll to the ground. The sky shifted and birds scattered. They stood before the altar, hands to their hearts. They had completed what they were sent to do. But then I saw a monstrous beast crawled out of the pit. One of the witnesses thrust out his hand and lightning struck out. One head of the beast unleashed a stream of destructive energy. The other witness fell as lightning coursed through him. The beast lunged forward and seized the other one. It swallowed him whole in a single motion. They fell motionless, their bodies strewn on the ground. The people watched and reacted in disbelief. They celebrated, trading goods as if nothing had happened, playing and partying as smoke curled behind the statues above. Still they lay there, silent in the dust. Then their fingers twitched, and their arms slowly rose. The crowd gasped in shock at what they saw. They began to rise upward, carried by a white cloud. I saw them ascend, vanishing into the brilliance above. Faces turned upward, mouths open in wonder. The earth shook, stone cracked, and structures fell. The two witnesses has completed their role. When the seventh trumpet sounded, the heavens shook. I saw 24 elders rise from their thrones and bow low. They set their crowns on the ground with trembling hands. The light of God appeared to mortal eyes. All the people on the earth knelt and bowed their faces. Then I saw the great gates open and the Ark of the Covenant appear. Lightning flashed above the Ark. The clouds tightened around it. Bolts struck the mountains, the seas, and the towers. The horizon lit up white. Stones of glowing ice rained down. I heard the people scream. I saw a great light appear before me. Then she came, glowing, pregnant, crowned with 12 stars above her head. She groaned as pain overtook her and nature shook. From the mist arose the dragon, massive and furious. His wings flared wide. He roared, and 10,000 warriors stood ready behind him. As he lunged, his tail flicked stars into the sky. I watched meteors streak through night's darkness. The dragon faced her fiercely, poised to strike. She fled into the forest, hidden and worn. I saw her there, clutching her stomach, eyes raised toward heaven. She lifted her hands toward the sky in silent plea. Inside that humble cottage, she gripped a bowl and drank, bracing herself. Pain fought its way through her, body tense, but she would give birth. When the child came, pure and radiant, it was taken up into the throne room above. He stood before the Ancient One under a halo of light. I saw the infant there, centered in absolute glory. I heard no cry from her then. She herself watched from the mist. She remained seated before the wooden table, gathering her breath. She sipped from a bowl and rested, eyes closed in exhaustion. Then I saw Michael rise, the commander of heaven's host. He flew before a great army, each soldier robed in light. Behind the clouds came the enemy, the dragon wreathed in flame, leading legions of dark warriors. The two forces collided in the sky, white wings against black. Michael faced the dragon head-on, flying toward the fire. He raised his sword, and its light burst through the dark. The beast roared in pain, molten fire spilling from its chest. The victory for heaven. The dragon fall, breaking through the lower clouds, lava trailing behind. I saw it crash to the earth, its form twisted and broken, but I was dead yet. The dragon saw the woman from afar. She fled across the wasteland, her steps slipping on the sand. Her arms stretched for balance as she crossed the dry ground. It pursued her, and she could not outrun its wrath. But then a miracle happened, wings spreading wide on her back. She flew toward the hidden clefts of the mountains. The dragon's body tensed as it prepared to strike. A torrent of water shot from its mouth. She landed, wings wrapped around her, bracing herself. The earth cracked open and swallowed the rushing flood. She collapsed, soaked and gasping for breath. But she was escaped. The dragon stood alone on the shore, wings spread in rage. The sea remained silent, its waters calm beneath the sky. I saw from the sea, the water began to churn violently. A single horn pierced the surface, then others followed. The beast emerged, head after head, water exploding around it. It stepped fully from the depths, massive and many-headed. One heavy foot slammed into the sand, its mouth opened wide, bearing fangs like a lion. I saw all 7 heads, each distinct but united, while the dragon still standing at the shore, watching. The beast bowed before the dragon, A red light shone from the dragon's mouth, touching the heads of the beast. One of the beast's heads had fallen, wounded to death. But it opened its eyes. The wound healed. It rose again, as a sign to the world. The people bowed, not just one, but many from every land. The reborn head stood in the open, arms spread. People looked up at him in devotion. He climbed higher, hand raised. He pointed to heaven, claiming authority. His voice was fierce, and none dared challenge him. Many bowed. They believed he was the Christ himself. He came face to face with one who would not yield. He seized him, rejecting mercy. The righteous men fall under his power. He stood above all culture and tongues. In the east, men bowed low in the south. Warriors raised his hands in surrender. In the north, in snow and silence, others fell to their knees. He walked the earth, and multitudes followed. I saw the tribes and peoples drawn to him, and they worshipped, not for truth, but because he had died and yet lived. I watched him sit at his stone table, blade in hand. He carved 3 burning bars, 666, into the rock. A man stepped forward, wrist on the table, eyes fixed on the glowing sign. The mark 666 appeared on his wrist in red fire. Then the same symbol burned into his forehead. He raised his marked hand high for all to see. The marked man passed the gate after the nod. In pouring rain, another hid by the wall, shielding his brow. He collapsed in the mud, soaked, starved, defeated. I saw 666 painted in dried blood on the stone wall. A long line formed toward the table, the sign all on their heads and arms. In that final hour, I saw the true Christ upon Mount Zion. Around him, the righteous gathered, unshaken, marked with the sign of light. One looked up into the radiance spilling from his back, and the light fell on him like a seal. And I knew then, no false sign, no beast, no shadow would undo what stood there. I saw the whore of Babylon seated high upon the throne, a golden cup in her hand, and pride upon her brow. With her was the beast from the sea, its many heads watching, waiting. Then came the kings of earth. Each of them carries both doubt and fear. They submitted to her before her throne, vowed to her the loyalty she wanted to hear. I watched as they all wanted to lick her boots, to have her love, her favor. I saw my brothers and sisters slain. The red soaked the road in patches, spreading like spilled wine. I saw the whore bent down and filled her cup from the blood of the saints. She enjoyed their blood. And then the kings came again. The whore feed them with the blood of the saint. The blood spilled over their face, soaked their robes. And I knew that her end is near. I am John the Apostle, exiled for the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. When he came to me, the Lord himself, he stood in light. His face was like the morning, and his hand reached for mine. And my eyes were opened. I saw what must come. I saw the 4 horsemen of apocalypse released. I saw the Abaddons rise, a creature crowned and cruel. And the dragon waited in the void, ready to devour the child. Then the beast rose from the sea. Its heads broke the surface one by one. The great cities fell. I was told, it is not the end. The bowls have not yet been poured. The wrath of God is still to come. People on earth entered Babylon by choice. I beheld the great harlot seated in authority, clothed in power and blasphemy. I saw one from the people approached. He did not resist. The mark of the beast appeared on his forehead. He screamed. The entire crowd was marked. Their faces were empty. Their will was gone. Some refused the mark. A remnant ran. The marked became hunters. They chased the unmarked. The system allowed no escape. The remnant was hunted. They found no shelter. They can't buy nor sell nor trade. Many had fallen. Some still clung to life. Most were lost. There's no way out to them but death. I saw the great harlot stood before the image of the beast. The ritual began. She raised her hands to lead the worship. The people bowed. They worshipped the beast. Tears fell. But the mark could not be undone. That night she entered the dark chamber to meet her master. Satan stood waiting, horned and silent. She gave herself to him. Babylon was his. I saw a voice came down from the sky. The messenger arrived with power. The earth shook as he touched down. His eyes burned with the message he carried. He opened his mouth and cried out, "Babylon has fallen. The judgment is here." Light and sound spread beyond every border. No wall stood against it. In the east, they looked up and trembled. In the north, they saw the light and knew it was not of this world. In the south, they fell to their knees without words. Those who carried gold and jewels feared what no wealth could silence. Even the marked heard it. Kings turned their faces upward and forgot their crowns. All nations heard. The truth reached every throne and every tribe. The 7 bowls of wrath were prepared. 7 were appointed. They stood ready, waiting for the command. The bowls of wrath passed from servant to servant. Then the Lord pointed. The command given. The 7 lifted the bowls. Judgment was set in motion. The first angel poured out his bowl, and the judgment took form. The plague fell like thick poison, flowing downward without mercy. The marked were struck first. Their skin cracked, and their voices broke in pain. The sores spread quickly, turning limbs to ruin. Even the strongest could not resist the curse. Their backs bowed under the weight of burning flesh. Faces were covered in rot, and breath came with agony. They hid their faces in shame, but the affliction did not hide with them. They drank what they thought might save them. It did not. The sores remained, spreading even faster. Even the healers were consumed. Their craft failed them. Even Ganges River could not cleanse what had been marked for wrath. Tears and blood mixed as they cried out, but no answer came. The dead lay unburied, and the flies gathered as witnesses. The second angel poured out his bowl upon the sea. Its surface turned, and the waters became as blood. The creatures below thrashed, then floated lifeless. Even the great sea beasts died, their bodies cast onto the shore. The seas burned red across the world. The waters rose in wrath and moved against the land. Ships were broken by the waves. No vessel stood firm. Wreckage drifted in the red tide, marked by the wind. Those who live on the ice looked down and saw the end of provision. On distant islands, they watched the sea turn against them. Their nets gathered only death, and their mouths fell silent. The third angel poured out his bowl, and the rivers turned to blood. Waters that once gave life now testified against the living. From the ancient streams to the hidden springs, all became as death. Those who depended on the flow reached down and saw judgment. Their rituals failed. Their eyes widened. They drank nothing. The vessels they used brought no relief. Even the beasts that trusted the earth were not spared. What touched the red water fell silent, and the rivers, once filled with song, reflected only the weight of heaven's wrath. The fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun. Fire was given to it, burning without restraint. The flame leapt and scorched the earth. Heat fell upon all the lands, from the greatest to the least. Laborers bent under its weight. their strength withering. Blisters rose where hands once worked, stones cracked, and toil gave way to groans. Their bodies trembled under the blaze. They looked upward, but no mercy came. Their false idols crumbled in the heat. They prayed, but the heavens were closed. Their lips cracked, and no water soothed them. They shed blood, yet no answer came from above. The false devotees lifted their hands, but only silence returned. The ground consumed the dead without pity. Forests turned to smoke, and the sky grew thick. The deep burst open, and fire joined fire. Beasts fell where they once roamed. The rivers gave nothing, only decay. All ice melted into water beneath the sun, and none found refuge. Despite all this, they still raised their voices in rage, cursing God. They pointed upward and blamed the one who holds the plagues. They offered no repentance, but returned to human sacrifices and idols. Fires does the blasphemous. Altars were overturned, and the holy defiled. Books were torn and cast to the ground. Even the image of the blessed was not spared. They bowed before the sign of the beast. The shadow of Satan was lifted above their cities. But he who sits on the throne did not answer. He watched, silent and shining. Then the fifth poured out his bowl upon the throne of the beast, and a darkness spread forth like thick poison. It came down to earth like waterfall. The darkness crept across cities and nations. The throne of the beast was the first to be swallowed by darkness. Its mouths opened, and blackness flowed from within. It clung to rooftops, devouring streets. It choked the high towers and ancient shrines. It covered idols and homes alike. Men fell to the ground, gripping their throats, their eyes wide with terror. Women screamed as the blackness touched their flesh. Children wept in confusion as the darkness swallowed their feet. In every land, they collapsed and cursed the light. They writhed in the shadow, but none turned back. None repented. Then the sixth angel poured out his bowl, and the Euphrates River dried up. Its bed cracked wide, exposing the path of destiny. The great river ran dry and split apart. The earth mourned its fracture. From the dragon's mouth came a foul sign. Frogs poured from its jaws, symbols of deception. The beast's head gaped and summoned them. The frogs leapt into every land as agents of darkness. Out from the Antichrist, the frogs came. In dark chambers, the frogs turned into unholy messengers. The messengers talked to warriors of the east. The foul creatures clung to robes of power. The West rulers listened to them. Poison dripped from unseen lips. Northern kings refused at first, but did not stand alone. The creatures obeyed with silent intent. Ancient kings bowed to the unseen command. The frog passed between throne and shadow. Warriors formed a line before unholy authority. Cloaks carried the darkness into their midst. Eastern monarchs joined in the silent alliance. Eyes behind the veil mirrored their submission. The messengers did their role well. They spread lies to everywhere in the world. Kings on horseback summoned their armies. Eastern armies marshaled under silent banners. Northern forces followed their call to war. In the American jungle, a ruler bore the blade toward Babylon. Kings of many lands stood armed before the city gates. Monarchs locked eyes, raising steel in unity. Within, the whore laughed in pride, seated in power, blind to her doom. I saw the seventh poured his bowl into the air. Light fell like a blade from heaven. God gave his last command. I saw radiance surged outward, expanding in all directions. A violent flash burst from the light, and a bolt of lightning followed. The sky split open, carved by thunder. A lightning bolt struck a mountaintop, igniting the stone. The earth cracked open, deepening into a chasm. Walls split as though pushed from within. Babylon's walls leaned, their blue surfaces fractured. A deep rift carved through the city square. Watchtowers tilted off balance. Idols tumbled, face first into dust. Temples collapsed under the strain. Wooden pagodas fractured. Stones fell from pyramids like loose teeth. Straw huts scattered under invisible force. The altar stones split down the center. From the heavens, a great wound opened on the land. Seas swelled and swept over the last high places. From below, mountains disappeared under quiet waters. Great hailstones plunged from the dark sky. One shattered a stone rooftop into fragments. Rocks and soil flew as ice struck the earth. Curved roofs caved beneath the blow. Columns snapped cleanly down the middle. Thatched huts crumpled under the frozen weight. Idols fell with cracked limbs and shattered faces. A golden pedestal splintered beneath an icy spike. The ground bore the scar of the impact. Some raised clenched fists and cried out blasphemous. Others pointed to the heavens, their mouths spewing curses to the Lord. Many fell to their knees, beating the ground. False holy men raised their voices in blasphemy. I stood still shocked of what I saw. Then I felt a presence behind me, firm, calm, and a hand rested on my shoulder. I turned. One of the angels pointed, and my eyes followed. I saw the whore and the beast who carries her. She sat upon a high throne, lifted by stone and pride. One by one, rulers entered, proud, decorated, cloaked in power, each from distant lands, yet drawn to her as if by hunger. They bowed, they stared, they reached. One sank to his knees, drawn low beneath her gaze, and she laid back, draped in her own glory, letting them come. I saw the road, stretching far, lined with wood and bodies of the martyrs. Nails held them down as blood ran freely to the dust. The earth drank it, pooling dark between broken stones. I saw Andrew lay still among the stones who killed him. I saw Philip stood in flame. He was burned alive. Bartholomew beheaded. The blade had no hesitation. I saw myself was boiled alive, yet I endured. Others huddled in the arena, feed to the beasts. I saw they looked up, hands trembling, waiting for the end. The whore lift a cup. She dipped it into the red that ran beneath our feet. She raised it high, her gaze fixed and empty. One by one, the kings received it. Another's eyes filled as he took it. Arms wide, he drank as if welcoming judgment. The last let it spill, a red trace across his mouth like a mark he chose. I saw the whore laughed loud atop the beast that carried her like a throne. But suddenly the beast turned back toward her, and their mouths opened. Fire came, full and fierce. Her scream tore the sky as flames took hold and climbed her robe. I watched her face vanish behind the blaze, her hands too late to stop it. Babylon burned. Its gates gave way to fire and black smoke. The towers split, bursting from within. Rows of homes fell as flames raced across their roofs. Cloth, spices, silver, all fed the fire as frames collapsed. Smoke climbed into the heavens, a dark veil over the land. Her people fled in silence, heads low, clutching what they could carry. On high ground, kings stood and stared into the rising smoke. One wept as if the fire had reached his own chest. Merchants fell to their knees, fists clenched, watching their trade die in flame. Even the silk that once bore wealth now burned into dust. Stacks of goods cracked and vanished in the heat. Out at sea, sailors was suffering the same thing. But at the final, I saw the Lord stood among them, still and bright. From the mist, the horse came. People reached for armor, pulling it close with steady hands. straps tightened. Then he mounted. The reins moved with his grip. The sword rose. Behind him, they answered with the lift of spears, and the silence that followed was not stillness, but the breath before glory. The Messiah rode forth, leading the armies of heaven. The fog curled beneath their hooves. From the mists, his army emerged, a force of divine command. Before them, the fog churned, and from its depths rose the dragon and its army. The two sides collided, light against shadow, justice against rebellion. Amid the chaos, he advanced. The dragon unleashed its fury, but he rode straight into the fire. Then, he lifted his sword and drove it into the dragon's chest. The creature screamed. Fire gushed upward as the wound tore open. Its roar was desperate and broken. The battlefield now stilled. The enemy lay broken. The war was over. The victory was his. I am John the Apostle. I was exiled to this island of Patmos for claiming Jesus as the true King. One day the light descended, and he appeared. He told me I was to receive a vision, a revelation for those who would come after. I was to write what I saw. He shows me the end. I've seen the 4 horsemen of apocalypse. I saw the abyss rose a swarm, locusts of hell, tormenting people. I saw the rivers turn to blood. I saw the harlot of Babylon. She held a cup filled with the filth of her abominations. I heard the sound of the 7 trumpets. Each blast announced a judgment. The world trembled beneath the weight of what had been decreed. But after all those, I also saw a brighter future. I had seen the 1,000 years kingdom of God. Then the heavens opened, and I saw the great white throne set upon the clouds. He sat upon it. Jesus Christ is King. The grave split open, and the dead rose. Mary Magdalene stepped forward with quiet grace. Peter was still as strong as I remember. And I saw myself kneeling, and peace upon my face. And a Roman emperor came forth. I heard his name was Constantine the Great. And this later came Thomas Aquinas, who understand God better than most people. And this woman, Teresa. I heard she saved a lot of lives in the name of God. And all the saints, the faithful, and those who had been slain, had risen. One by one they knelt before the throne. Then I saw the bride of the Lamb. She stood alone, clothed in white. Then the gates opened. She stepped into it, slowly, willingly. The multitude rejoiced. The angels took their place, and I saw him. He sat upon the throne, crowned and radiant, his arms open to receive her. She approached, and at the base of his throne she knelt. He placed his hand upon her head. From that touch came a light like a blooming flower, pure and unfolding. Then every knee bowed, every voice fell silent. They stood together on the throne, the Lamb and his bride. The marriage was fulfilled, and it would never pass away. I saw the New Jerusalem descend in silence, its heart glowing with the light of the Messiah. It welcomed all the children of God who returned. The people walked slowly, remembering a covenant long sealed. Some knelt in the gardens, trembling beneath the weight of glory. The children of God reached toward the waters, searching their reflections in the truth. The faithful bowed low until their faces met the stone. I saw him seated on the throne, ruling by flesh and blood. Those who had mourned were lifted, and his hand wiped every tear from their eyes. And I knew the old had passed. All things had been made new. I saw creatures of the seas rose back to the surface. The creatures of the sky moved as one, carving paths of light through the clouds. The creatures of the land emerged without fear. The people of God embraced the least among creation with tenderness, the strongs and the smalls walking together. And I saw the nations rise and walk toward the light. From the east came the people of China, no longer call their king the son of sky. Behind them came the people of Japan, no longer believe they are descendants of the sun goddess. Then the Arabians approached, laying aside the Quran, now calling God by his right name. The India followed, leaving behind the million faces of their gods to seek the face of one. Then came the people of Southeast Asia, who let go of all illusions for so-called nirvana. From the west came the people of the Aztec, no longer offering blood to the fall gods. The people of Africa broke the spears once raised to their ancestral spirits. The people of Israel stood by the gates, hands raised in welcome, once scattered, now restored. The north came the Vikings, who had left their Valhalla behind and seek for heaven. And then the people of Rome entered after burned all of temples of Zeus. Above all, the banner of Israel rose and caught the light. And I beheld the one who reigns, seated in stillness, his hands open in peace. Around him, the kings of all nations bowed low, laying their crowns, for no throne remained but his. And I knew the promise had been fulfilled. The nations had come home. And I saw what came after, in the 1,000 years of his reign. The peoples of the earth lived as one. People divided by color stood together. Cultures long parted drew symbols together, writing a shared story upon the earth. Even the beasts found rest. The strong and the gentle lay side by side, unafraid. No harm came to the children. Music rose along the shores, and around the fire many voices became one song. The earth gave without resistance, food and warm. Fruit hung heavy on every branch, and no hand reached in hunger. Yet even here, sorrow had not been erased. Some still bore the weight of old wounds. But I saw him walk among them still, placing his hand on those bowed low, and healing flowed. Faces once veiled in grief lifted into light. I saw the holy ones rise to serve beside him, and they taught, not with power, but with patience, as guardians of peace. And in the dawn of every day, I knew his kingdom had no end. I saw the twins walk where no man was meant to wander. They're both young and unknowing, drawn by the curious. Around them, the world held its breath. And when they came to the mouth of the abyss, it welcomed them. They entered. The red glow beneath flickered up the walls. I watched their forms shrink within that hollow world, swallowed by fire and shadow. And then they saw him, Satan. He has been chained in here since the Armageddon. The twins are scared, but they don't know who he is. Satan has been long forgotten after 1,000 years, as so with the world before Armageddon. The last generations don't even know he exists. That's when he knows it's the right time. Gog stepped forward. Magog did not stop him. He whispered to his ears the lies. First, they doubt. But Satan's words were too sweet to their ears. They started to be convinced. They started to believe in those lies. And so it was. The millennial kingdom is coming to an end. The lies moved faster than flesh, quieter than thought. I saw it slip from one mouth to another, from hand to hand. A word shared over a table became a conviction in the street. No trumpet sounded, Yet entire crowds turned their heads toward the same lie. In every nation, it took root. I watched it wear different tongues and be welcomed as truth. It crouched low in the heart, waiting for hunger, and offered lies over wisdom, from brothers to brothers. I knew the lie had not merely spread, it had prepared its throne. I saw a multitude stood in stillness, drawn together by what they believed was true. But one among them did not whisper, he was observing. Having seen enough, he turned and withdrew from the crowd. From a distance, he looked back once more at what was unfolding. Then his wings emerged, the disguise no longer needed. He's an angel. He ascended quickly. He flew through the clouded night, returning to the place of command. He landed in the outer court of the king. The Lord already sat upon the throne. The angel knelt, offering his account. The Lord received him without surprise or delay. In a calm gesture, he made known that nothing had occurred outside his foresight. He had seen the rebellion before it began. The angel now understood. What had happened was allowed, and what would follow had already been written. They searched with the urgency of men who knew time was thinning. I watched as Magog dug, each movement driven by an hunger. Then Gog froze. His hand reached beneath the fractured stone, and there it was, the book. They sat together, reverent, as if the book might vanish if touched too soon. They had found the spell, and heaven would not remain silent much longer. They gathered in silence, preparing for the ritual. Gog stooped low, and with steady hand began the carving. When the final arc burned red, the ground accepted the mark. Magog held the book like a covenant. Gog opened it with intent, not hesitation. The air thickened. No one moved. Flame flickered, waiting. Gog whispered verses only the dead might remember. The page started to breath. Then the offering was brought forth, bound and silent. The boy stood as commanded, swallowed by the ring of fire. Gog raised the weapon crafted for one task, then staffed it to the boy's chest. Blood traced every carved symbols. The sigils awakened. Light raced through every line. Flame devoured the body. The design ignited. Smoke curled in perfect balance. Then a red spark cracked the heart of the smoke. From that breach, the shape stepped forth. Satan was released. Gog and Magog knelt before him, welcomed him. I felt the heavens recoil. What they had unleashed could not be undone. Then they started preparing for war. Weapons forged. Every weapon tested would be used. Their breath froze, but their aim did not falter. Millions followed without question. The line of march had already begun. Gog and Magog issued commands. Maps were studied, marked for conquest. Orders given, the army obeyed. This was the beginning of their campaign. What they served burned hotter than fire. The news came sealed in light. The Lord read the order, and the war began. The righteous nations chose their side, they chose him. Angels sounded the call. The air changed. Armor was fastened. Every movement spoke readiness. The forge gave birth to weapons of light. Each strike carried purpose. Ranks assembled. Heaven was preparing to strike. He moved with calm, not hesitation. Destiny was no longer waiting. Satan had moved first. Now the Lamb would answer. Jesus led from the front. His army stretched behind him. Across the plain, the forces of darkness advanced. When the clash came, it was a fracture in the world. Good men fell. Light shattered on bloodied ground. The enemy surged, striking with reckless hatred. The host of heaven met them blade for blade, flame for flame. Jesus entered the thick of battle. He did not hesitate. Then finally Satan stepped forth, burning with wrath. He opened his mouth, and flame poured like judgment twisted. His body tore and swelled. Wings broke out. The beast rose. He turned into a dragon, its fire scarring the land beneath. The soldiers of light lifted their shields, unshaken. Jesus' eyes locked onto the beast. His grip tightened. The dragon was angered. He rose the sword of light. It gleamed with finality. Jesus struck. The blade pierced the dragon's chest. Light erupted. The beast screamed, lava pouring from its wound. The fire consumed its own flesh. The dark army broke. They turned and fled into shadow. The host of heaven raised their weapons. Light chased darkness from the ground. Jesus lowered his sword. The fire around him obeyed. The sky opened. Judgment was done. Heaven stood still, victorious. He walked alone through the ruins, each step an echo in the hollow of what once was. The bodies that lined the path said nothing, but their silence filled the air more than any cry. Blood ran through the stone, refusing to dry. He stopped. His shoulders trembled. He placed a hand over his chest, and for a moment, the king wept. He for the souls consumed by a war. Even light could not win without loss. Then suddenly, he came in light. The Father descended, radiant and still. Then the Father gave him the high authority. The final judgment was of his to command. He sat on the throne where judgment was to be given, and everything beneath him waited. Countless people stood, all facing him, waiting to be called. People came forward and knelt without being told. He placed his hand on their shoulder, and he gave his judgment. The riderous lifted their head in joy and no longer trembling. Others walked up with pride and arrogant. He touched them the same way, but the judgment was different. They couldn't stay standing after hearing it. An angel stepped in, took their arm, and pulled them out of the line. They were not prepared for what was to come. The next group was already in place, ready to step forward when called. More people were on the path, walking toward the steps like all before them. The line seemed never stopped, and I saw that this was how the end would be made complete. I saw the Father rise into the heavens, beyond the stars, and he carried the old world in his hands. Without word or struggle, he broke it. The ground cracked open and the world came apart. Its end was final. Then he stretched out his hands, and from nothing, a new heaven and earth appeared. The new earth was no longer globe, it was flat, had no boundary, and I saw that life had returned. The people walked the land, whole again. Even nature was resurrected. The hall of God has rooms for everyone. I saw the riderous who fell in the old world, now alive in the new. They will never die. They did not labor or mourn. No evil was among them, for it had already been judged. And it's all about communion with God. Satan was condemned forever in fire and torment, also whom followed him. And at the end, I saw three sat together. The Father, the Son, the Spirit. The eternal kingdom had begun. I opened my eyes. The vision was gone, but its weight remained. I cried. I had seen the end and the beginning. I sat up, reached for the quill, and looked at the empty page. I began to write. Each word carried what I had seen. There was no sound but the scratch of ink. Behind me, the world continued, but I wrote what was beyond it.